You're watching CK Media's CK News with me, Charles Kane, and today we're talking about Huawei. Oh, you can come this way. I just got some weird looks by some people with a pram, but we're gonna keep going. Let's check it out. Huawei. Right now, I'm visible by all those desk jockeys inside. Can you see them? Say hello. Hello, Huawei. All right, what's up? Let's go. In the US, New Zealand, and Australia, Huawei, the company over here, just behind me, has been banned from creating their 5G network. That new and improved fast internet stuff.
It's called 5G.
Self-driving cars that talk to each other to avoid accidents, or connect our dustbins.
And it's believed that Trump, the President of the United States, is planning on signing an executive order that basically bans all of the telecoms company in the US from using any of Huawei's equipment. What's 5G? Well, I mean, if you don't know already, 5G is like this super fast internet that basically allows for whole new sorts of technology, such as autonomous cars, super fast broadband speeds, and even there's a possible application for the NHS to use it to administer drugs remotely to patients. So it's pretty handy. 5G speeds are supposed to be 20 times faster than what we currently have. In 5 years' time, China predicts that 1.3 billion people will be using the network. 56% of that will be in China. 17% of that will be in the US, and only 9% in the EU, unfortunately, even though the EU is huge. So why did America ban Huawei from building the 5G? Well, they said that 5G uses a sort of code that is updated constantly, which makes it almost impossible for it to be completely protected. Alan Woodward, this guy from Surrey, a professor, a scientific guy, he said that with 5G, you can change quite a lot, you can affect quite a lot with interfering with only a small amount. So there's huge possible applications for hacking and all sorts of nefarious stuff. America is quite preoccupied with these guys, especially from China, from making their 5G. For two reasons. Either because they want to be the first ones in the charge of the 5G race, or they're actually genuinely worried about their security. Or maybe it's both. Mr. Ren Zhengfei, the founder of this beautiful company right over here, I mean, you've got to admit, it's a pretty building. He said that if America don't want us, then hey, UK, we're going to come over to you in a bigger and better way. Interesting. As I said before, there is a risk with security, especially with using Huawei equipment. And the British government, they've already recognized this, yet they said that they can mitigate the potential risks of using Huawei's equipment. Now, as I said before, the US, Australia, and New Zealand have already banned this company from creating their 5G stuff. Whereas over here, we're not actually alien to their stuff. In 2005, they installed a whole load of fiber optics in our broadband infrastructure in the UK, and with BT. So they've already got a whole load of stuff over here in England, including 3G and 4G towers, you know, the stuff for your phone. So when you're looking at the UK to potentially ban this company and reject all of their equipment, well, I mean, it sounds pretty impractical because, let's be honest, we're already using their stuff. What we're going to do, rip it out and replace it with like Nokia's stuff? I mean, that's going to be time consuming, that's going to be a waste of money, that's going to be a waste of time. We're probably not going to do that, let's be honest. Milo, what are you doing? Don't dig up Huawei. Milo's digging a massive hole. Oh, look at the hole that my dog dug. Hey? Oh man. Sorry, Huawei. Hey boy, who's a good boy? Whoops. Now, we can't assume immediately that these guys are, you know, shady, because GCHQ ex-boss Robert Hannigan, that's the Secret Service kind of like intelligence stuff in England, communications. Robert Hannigan said that they've never found anything nefarious or shady with Huawei, and, you know, to say that their equipment, Chinese equipment, is an unacceptable risk to be used is utter nonsense, is what he said. Even the Russians have said that Huawei is cool and that they've never found any backdoors in their software. The Russians said they've checked harder on the equipment than the Americans. So, I don't know. In the unlikely event that we did actually ban Huawei, the GSMA said that it would be pretty catastrophic because it would end up costing businesses, operators like, O2 and stuff like that, and eventually us, who are going to be using the 5G on our handhelds. Borja Ekholm, I don't know if I said that right, but he's the head of Ericsson. You remember Sony Ericsson? Well, Ericsson's a different company. He said that if you ban Huawei, you limit innovation and, potential for the future. Well, he might be right there, because Huawei's budget on R&D, research and development, is 10 billion, which is quite a lot, I mean, that's double the amount that the whole of the UK spend on that, research and development in 5G. So he's not entirely wrong. Can I get that focus? Oh, that's much better. All right. What would happen if we did actually use Huawei's equipment and it turns out to be bad? Well, the Royal United Services Institute, a British intelligence think tank, said that if we use Huawei's equipment, it would be naive at best and at worst, irresponsible. Now get this, the US officials said that in Eastern Europe there are a large number of mid-sized to small European states that, if allowed Huawei in, would allow for corruption to be happening, some dodgy deals with them, to allow Huawei and further the Chinese government to exert power into Europe and exert their will into the EU, which is a scary thought, with the EU, not China. Huawei reject the accusations that they're any sort of security risk, and they said that if they were, then the tens of thousands of their customers and their partners would have noticed something already. Well, the Prince's Trust, a charity organization for youth, which had a 12-year relationship with Huawei, last month has, ended that commitment and said that they said the reason was because of their ethics committee saying that it's probably not a good idea to be receiving any, funds from these guys. And guess what? Oxford University have said they've stopped receiving grants, research grants, and all that kind of nice stuff in their university for research as well. So I guess that is a few big partners that have noticed their dealings. Kieran Martin, the leader of UK's National Cybersecurity Centre, said that, well, they'd found repeated issues of supply chain shortfalls and, sort of core structural problems with Huawei's equipment. Charles, what does that even mean? Well, last year, Russian hackers attacked the UK, and they said, in the deep analysis of that attack, that they were able to gain access into the UK's network by these cracks in the products that Huawei have issued us. So there are flaws in their coding and in their products and in their systems, but hey, I mean, it's almost impossible to keep anything watertight. But the question is, are those cracks and leaks placed there on purpose? Because those Russians, they gained access to the UK's network without having any Russian equipment in the UK themselves. Kieran Martin said that the problems in Huawei's equipment have to be fixed. And Huawei at first were kind of like, I'm not sure about that. But they eventually came around to it and they committed $2 billion to fixing those leaky pipes in their equipment, if you will. And they said, unfortunately, that it'll take between 3 and 5 years for those issues to be implemented and to be corrected, which they likened it to a moving train, a lightning fast moving train that you're trying to put repairs onto, which is fair enough, really. I mean, it's a big company with lots of equipment. I'm sure it's pretty difficult to try and fix. Tuesday, the 19th of February, Ren Zhengfei, the founder of this company, had an interview with CBS. And what did he say? He said that Huawei have never given inappropriate information to the Chinese government, ever. Well, in the last 30 years, and they're not intending to give any inappropriate information to them in the next 30 years. However, as of 2017, there was a law created in Beijing that says any company that operates there that the Chinese government demand information of, whatever that may be, they have to give it to them under the National Securities Intelligence Law. National Intelligence Law? Hold on. Yeah, the National Intelligence Law. Huawei said they've never done anything nefarious. Well, I don't know. They had one of their employees caught in Poland and arrested on charges of spying. And I don't know about you, but that seems pretty risky and pretty shady to me. Mr. Ren Zhengfei, founder, he said that the company's growth has been in past destructive. Destructive growth for a company? That's unheard of. Well, last year, it said that their revenues reached 100 billion. I don't know if you can really imagine what 100 billion looks like, $100 billion, but that's a lot of money. And they profited last year, well, 2 years in 2017, $7.2 billion. That's a whole load of cash. These guys, if you don't know, are in fact the #1 producers of smartphones in the whole world. You know what Mr. Ren Zhengfei also said? He likes enjoying a cup of tea. You know what I say, Mr. Ren Zhengfei? I say, cheers to a cup of success. That's cold. In 2013, the Ministry of Defence in the UK issued a report called the Global Cyber Games Report, and in there it detailed a possible plan for China to invade countries' infrastructures, different countries' infrastructures, under the facade of commercial interests using companies such as Huawei, to gain access and control of those countries' infrastructures, such as internet, and in there use state-funded, apply a state-funded intellectual property theft operation, basically stealing, patents and stuff on critical, new projects and new developments, basically stealing other countries' tech developments and nuclear war stuff developments and all that kind of stuff, and they don't have to put any work in. So they will ultimately become like the best country because they've just got all this information from every country because they've got their infrastructure, and they include wiretaps so they can get government information, about political stuff, and that they have critical off switches in critical infrastructure. What does that mean? What does an off switch? What would an off switch do? Well, imagine that. Imagine this: China, if they're not liking a deal with another country, say the US or the UK or whatever, and they say, well, if you don't comply with our demands, we're going to switch off your whole internet, or we're going to switch off, all of the traffic lights in the UK. Imagine that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you want to turn right? Another car's going to smash into you. That's going to stop all of the economy, for broadband. Do you know what I mean? It's possible. And that's what the Ministry of Defence, the UK Army, basically, issued in 2013. And they said specifically about Huawei that they're actually part of the government, that the government have great control over them, and Huawei just feed information to the communist government of China, which is a scary possibility. Let's be honest, hacking isn't such a strange and alien concept for the Chinese. I mean, the government employ hackers to source economic information from other countries. They steal economic information. I know, mad, isn't it? APT-10, or Red Apollo, is a Chinese state-funded hacking organization that attacked a whole load of IT services and infiltrated this cloud network that runs in the UK and the US. And we found out that, it's China behind them, behind those hackings. And they spread spying tools in those cloud services. Scary. If you don't think China have any sort of vindictive behavior, well, remember that I said Australia said that they've banned Huawei and from creating their 5G network. Well, this month, Australia's national and liberal parties, their political parties, had been hacked. And they said that in those hackings, there remained the digital fingerprint of Beijing. And the hacking was so good, apparently, so unbelievably sophisticated, that they don't even know if they took any information from the political parties, and they don't even know if they're still there. Ooh. I would be scared if I was them. I mean, that's political information. That's pretty scary. Remember I said Huawei were accused of implementing backdoors or cracks into their software? Well, they counter-accused America of doing the exact same thing with their company Cisco, which is another big technology company, and apparently the NSA had in fact implanted some backdoors, found out by this whistleblower from America, from Cisco itself, this guy. Alex Younger, the head of MI6, said that, well, we've got to decide as UK, we've got to decide whether is it worth it for China to own key infrastructures in the UK? Well, let's put it this way. 5G is a pretty important thing, and it's pretty big in the EU and everywhere at the moment, and already EU companies have earmarked around $340 billion in preparation for the creation of 5G in the EU. I mean, that's a lot of money. So this is a big thing we're talking about. In the past, Huawei haven't really been so good with repairing their image, especially with the US. I mean, one time the US tried to establish a third party, a company, to try and check over the equipment and services that Huawei were potentially going to give the US, much like our system that we've got over here in England. However, when they were talking with one of the heads of Huawei about setting up this third-party company to check over, Huawei went out and made their own company called Merilink to go and check their company's stuff before they give it to America. So they're checking their own stuff. He said, no, we'll do it. Really? That's kind of like when you were a kid, when you're doing a test in class and you pass it around to somebody else for you to check your mark. That's like you checking your own mark. It's a bit cheeky of them, isn't it? They're very brash. Maybe it's because they've got big, deep pockets. I mean, they're so brash even to call themselves the biggest company, to call themselves Sesame Seed in between the US and China, these two great things. I mean, that's mad, isn't it? Like Sesame Seed. These guys, they ain't no Sesame Seed. But maybe you haven't even heard of these guys before today. I mean, it's not surprising. They've actually done that on purpose. They've kept a low-profile tactic for countries outside of China. Maybe it's because of that awful name. I mean, the first time I heard it, my dad told me the company was called Huawei. I mean, like, they don't even know who they are. Anyway, that's it. Thanks for listening. This is a two-part thingy. This thing is massive. Thank you for listening. This is CK Media, CK News, and I'm out. Leave your comments down below, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next time, baby.